This is the story of a lost 1919 horror film that I found and was responsible for it being restored. See, I've always loved horror movies. When I was a kid, I'd stay up late every Friday and Saturday to watch WJRT TV's Theater of Thrills, hosted by that groovy ghoul, Christopher Coffin. So when I was given the rare opportunity to own and help preserve a true piece of horror film history, I was really excited. It was in the fall of 1987, and I was going through the assorted bric-a-brac at an antique store in Oscoda, Michigan. It's no longer there. And I happened upon a reel of 35mm film, and it smelled awful, like dirty sweat socks. And that told me a couple things about the film. That smell meant that the film was deteriorating. Film stock from the silent era was not on safety film as it became later in the talking era. It was nitrate-based and difficult to handle, and it burns incredibly hot. So at its state of decay, the film could literally burst into flames with no notice. I asked how much the reel cost, and the shop owner said $50, which I thought was pretty high considering everything, but my parents, Frank and Lorraine Morrison, allowed me to borrow the money to make the purchase. And my then wife, Kathy, was furious. She never liked anything that I did anyways, but she was furious, and I mean, how dare I spend $50 without discussing it with her? Our marriage had never been that good, and truth be told, I'd have rather had the film than her, and that's sad. When I got the film home, I took a flashlight and magnifying glass and began to carefully inspect the frames of film. And it was a horror film, and I couldn't have been happier. I had a really decent 35mm camera with a macro lens, so I carefully unwound the film and snapped a photo to represent each scene on that reel. The title of the movie was Satan's Signature, and my reel was the second of this two-reel feature. At that time, I had a small publishing company named Treasure Cove Publications, and I decided that I would produce a booklet featuring those shots of the film. Well, I contacted, though, also at the same time the American Film Institute, as they worked to transfer silent movies onto safety film and to restore them. And they wanted the film as they had Reel 1, but as far as they knew, Reel 2 had been lost to time, as so much of our film heritage has been. I agreed to donate the film, and they did eventually preserve it and restore it. As a thank you, they established a new collection titled the Dennis Morrison Collection, and it is part of the AFI collection at the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. The movie was released in 1919 by Capitol Films, and the movie starred Richard Travers, Betty Brown, and also featured Frank Dayton. For one reason or another, I don't remember why, but I never published the booklet. But still, the images were published in a weekly newspaper where I was the assistant editor. The newspaper is the Alcona County Review. It was nearly Halloween in 1988, and my editor, Jerry Stahl, offered me a nice bonus if I could come up with a feature that would generate more advertising revenue for the Halloween edition. And I told Jerry about the movie and suggested a center spread featuring the stills from the film to tell the horror story. And I was to sell ads on which would be form the outside border around the film. And not only did I fill up 20-some ad spots on the center spread, but also for the page prior to and after the feature, so we were able to put more images into the feature. I had to make just one change to the feature before it could go, and that was to get the name Satan out of it. I complied and renamed the film The Mark of the Cloven Hoof, for you see, in the last scene of the movie, the dead vampire/monster was shown with the devil's cloven hoof as one of his feet. The feature I created used a total of 9 stills from the movie, and I had no idea what happened or what was happening in the story of the first reel. But the second reel, which I owned, showed what appeared to be a murder, the skulking around of a vampire named Craven, a gunshot into a closet, and finally, the dead monster. I feel very pleased that in a small way I've had a part in the preservation of our motion picture heritage. It is unfortunate that probably 85 to 90% of all the motion pictures made in the silent era on nitrate film have been lost for good. Every once in a while, like with this movie, reels become available. They're found. And if they were under the right conditions, then they're still in good enough condition to restore. So I was happy to be able to do this, and I actually did find several more several more films years later, which I'll tell you about in another video in probably in a couple days. Well, thank you all for stopping by. Please be sure to give me a thumbs up and subscribe. I appreciate each and every one of you. God bless, and have a great evening.